Margaret Atwood said, "Men are afraid that women will laugh at them. Women are afraid that men will kill them." The answer to society's problems only lies in the divine order from an African martial arts perspective. So help me God, let me die and burn in hell if that's not the case. I have conclusive evidence in this video that that is the case, that Greek and Roman mythology, to a large extent, if not completely, comes from African mythology through the islands like Crete and ultimately made their way to mainland Europe, if you will. And Pandora, pansexual, Bacchus, Dionysus, Bacchus from Hermonthis, Aphroditus, Hermes, and so on prove my point. So some of you think I get my facts confused, so let's painstakingly show you why I'm right. First, let's start with the introduction by Joseph Campbell. He talks about the field of folk psychology has been seeking to establish the psychological basis of language, myth, religion, art development, and moral codes. Okay. Let's see where it goes. Okay, over here with the dots. I usually put dots by what I'm referring to. Okay. Pause it if you must. Moving on. So now we go to Ares. Okay. Ares, the Greek god of war, the son of Zeus and his wife Hera. His brother was Hephaestus, the smith god. Always represented armed, he was prone to launch himself into a cause without inquiring too closely as to its validity. He was often at loggerheads with his half-sister, Athena, and in the Trojan War, they supported different sides. He favoring the Trojans. He had a daughter, Harmonia, as a result of his affair with Aphrodite. Okay, I don't have the time to read all this stuff, but I'll read a little bit, a relevant part, and show you. Okay, so harmony is a result of the god of war, who is Ares. Okay, there's also Eros and Eri, chaos and discord. So his daughter is Harmonia. Okay, one of his children. Harmony is brought from the greatest warrior, so to speak, spiritually speaking, absolutely, mixing with the goddess of love. That is the divine order, the most beautiful woman from their own perspective. And the mysteries are about cheating people like me out of their rightful place, especially due to race. This is why the Egyptians depicted people with animal heads, because they were a mixed race that didn't want you to fixate on race, but spiritual qualities of men. The Greeks, however, depicted their deities with Greek typefaces, and the Romans did the same thing, similar thing. Okay? So, moving on. This goes without saying, these people are, the reason why they fall short of truth is their fixation on money and women. This is also why even Pike says your ability to rise above your kind of worldly carnal desires are where the greatest successes of life lie. So they have failed using their own Masonic perspective, their own civilized Greek mythological kind of perspective. They have failed miserably. Well, let me go back to the beginning. We'll get into Pan shortly. Pan is key, and that's where you get pedophilia. Aleister Crowley's hymn to Pan, he's the god of shepherds, and and he takes from Bess and so on. We'll prove that definitively. Bess and Bacchus, is where you get Pan. Okay, we'll prove that definitively. Let me go back to the introduction. Okay. So, moving on. So then we go here. They're not only jewels, but also dangerous jinn abide, the inconvenient or resisted psychological powers that we have not thought or dared to integrate into our lives. And they remain, okay, basically it goes on and on about the connection between myth and the psychological powers that we have in our lives, right? How to recreate oneself using the stories from the myth, and the doctor as the master manipulator. Okay, so he goes on to say, but they are fiendishly fascinating too, for they carry the keys that open the whole realm of the desired and feared adventure of the discovery of the self. That is the second blue dot on the page. Okay, so finding out who you really are, the mental health insists you do it from a Greco-Roman perspective, which obviously comes from Africa, and the difference between the Sphinx and the Sphinx of Greece proved my point. One is a man with a leopard's body. The other is a dog and a woman's face and so on. Okay, and a winged, kind of despicable creature. Okay, moving on. 9. He is the one who appears and points to the magic. Okay, hold on. Come back. The Doctor is the modern master of the mythological realm, the knower of all the secret ways and words of potency. Okay, so of course, what do you think mental health is? Mental health is basically witchcraft, witch doctor. Okay, should be. Yeah, it's right here. First up here somewhere by the doctor. Okay. He goes on to say, so his role is precisely that of the wise old man of the myths and fairy tales, whose words assist the hero through the trials and terrors of the weird adventure. Look, I am the top martial artist. I am above all the doctors that ever were put together. Fuck their perspective. They couldn't find one person to beat me and resorted to sabotaging like a bitch. What the fuck am I going to listen to them for? Okay? He is the one who appears and points to the magic shining sword that will kill the dragon terror. They have the nerve to even refer to weapons. Ares is always depicted with weapons. And I talk about transferable skills, combination, mind, body, and soul. Figure it out. The figure. Tells of the waiting bride in the castle of many treasures. Okay, so right here, he says this is how you get women. It's a direct way for mental health and their merchant allies to control reproduction. Very straightforward. They're going to sit there and pretend that everything I said wasn't relevant. Who I am, who my family is, okay? My family is basically the spiritual royalty of society. No one has done what they've done. With all the stumbling blocks considered, without the network and all the bullshit and all the blood money to use on charity. No, we didn't have that. My dad comes from one of the poorest nations, if not the poorest nation in the world. Came here without a penny. English is like a 5th or 6th language. Became a brain surgeon during the 60s. You don't see that anywhere. As an African, not an African American. You don't see that anywhere. It doesn't exist anywhere. To then sit there and pretend that that's irrelevant in a eugenic society, just shut the fuck up. Kill yourself if you don't see it my way. Kill yourself. You're a traitor to God. All right. Number 10. Okay, page 10. So that when at last the time has ripened for the return to the normal world, the initiate will be as good as reborn. So the purpose of all this is to get you to reinvent yourself in the kind of phoenix, image. The Greek phoenix. Okay. We remain fixated at the unexercised image of our infancy and hence disinclined to the necessary passages of our adulthood. In the United States, there's even a pathos of inverted emphasis. The goal is not to grow old, but to remain young, not to mature away from mother, but to cleave onto her. And then it goes on to mention, which can come to them only from the centaurs, Selene, satyrs, and other constituent incubi of the root of Pan. Okay, of Pan, the pedophile deity that is stolen from Egypt. Okay, remember the dots are what I'm referring to. I'm already at 8 minutes and I haven't even touched on the gods yet other than Ares. You can imagine how aggravating this is. I'm actually doing a very good job of presenting this topic when you consider the nature of it and what it touches on and how it proves definitively what's going on and why they're doing it to me. Okay. This is why gang stalking exists. These are a bunch of sickos of mental health. They like to control sex and money, and they're too cowardly to do the right thing, and so they just ravage the world unchecked. Here is Bess. I don't really have time to read about him, but basically, I'll read you him from the Egyptian mythology book. Okay. I'm not gonna have time to go through Shishot. Bes came to Egypt in the 12th dynasty from the Sudan. His foreign origin being shown by the fact that, unlike the other gods, he was represented full face. Okay, foreign origin, full face. It goes on to say, as destroyer of evil spirits, Bes came to be considered a powerful sorcerer. He was primarily a god of good humor and of merrymaking. He danced and played the harp and lyre and so on. Okay, Bes was represented as a dwarf with long arms, short bandy legs, and a tail, very much like Pan. Remember, he came from Sudan, not even from Egypt. His shaggy beard and brow were often described as leonine, and he was usually represented wearing the skin of a leopard or a lion. It goes on to say the female counterpart of Bes was beset a fire-spitting serpent, but Bes was more generally thought to be married to Taweret. So one could argue that Pan is a very straightforward embodiment of Satan. As a gender-neutral and Greek heavy embodiment of Satan. Greek cultural heavy, you know. So here, Bess, remember the dots. Okay. Okay, and over here. Okay. On the top here, comes from Sudan, right there on the top of this side. And then here, over here, the dots there. I just read. Okay. All right, moving on. Circe proves my point in more than one way. She is the sister of the wife of King Minos from Crete, where homosexuality is said to come from. And notice she's right here depicted as a very black-looking woman. I mean, that, you know, that's a very black-looking woman. Okay, almost West African. And okay, so King Minos is the son of Zeus, and I want to say Hera, and basically Crete was a major trade center, which proves my point in another way. So the Roman god of love, equivalent to the Greek god Eros. Okay, Cupid. Read this, it proves my point as well. I don't have time to really go over it. I could have done a lot better job with this video if it wasn't for a lot of things, but it's okay. Here's Eros, usually represented as a small, chubby, winged child. So why are they using a child for the god of love? You know, he's a weird, sensual child. You can imagine how that plays out, why teachers have sex with their kids. You know, their students these days, it's popular, how it relates to pederasty, 5th, 6th century BC in Greece, and so on. Okay. So obviously I am who I say that I am. I'm from the royal family of Eri from Nigeria, okay? My cousins are probably closer to that, but I am the spirit. It's the spiritual representation. I don't have time to go over that. I go over it in my videos. Mercury, a Roman god, son of Maia and Jupiter, and introduced at an early date from a Greek or Greco-Etruscan source. He is closely identified with the Greek god Hermes, the messenger of Jupiter, whose attributes the catechist wand, broad-rimmed hat, winged sandals, and purse he shares. Like Hermes, he protects merchants. Indeed, his name contains the root of the word merx, which means merchandise. So notice the catechist symbol. Usually this has 2 snakes winding to the top. Okay, Mercury. Okay, this is key. You might get mercenary to help with the merchants. You got murked, you got killed, and so on. Pasiphae, she was the sister of Circe and shared some of her ability in sorcery. Remember Circe, the church, Kirk. Basically, she has sex with a bull because she's mad because her husband's out sleeping with other people. This is where you get a lot of this Western bestiality porn. If you don't believe me, yes, there is bestiality porn and sickos that have sex with animals, and it has to do with Greek mythology. Think about the Greek societies. The Greek has the civilization, the fraternities, sororities, and college, and so on. All right, so Pluto, the smallest planet, the furthest away from the sun, I believe. The name used in Greek and Roman mythology describe Hades, the god of the underworld, and means the rich. So the rich are the scum. If you're a gold digger, you're dating the devil. That is part of Western culture, okay? You know, it's describing Hades. Other names associated with Pluto include Orcus and Dispater, father of riches. Zeus, Jupiter, apparently took over Pluto's sphere of power. This is why Christianity has a kind of devilish pedophile cults involved in it, because it has to do with Zeus, Serapis, Pluto, Apollo. And I don't have time to really go over this, so let me get to Pan. This is probably the key one. Psyche is important as well. The female spirit double. This is where you get the bitch shit in martial arts and a lot of stuff, partially due to Psyche, the female spirit double, and so on. And then there's Pan. Okay, Pan. Okay, it says right here, having love affairs with Echo and Diana and others. A lot of times. So basically, you have to read this. It says right there that he had sex with little boys. Okay, read this thing off the screen.